okay, there's lots of change, chaos. Where do we ground? What can we rely on? What are our values, and where do we want to go? Chaos is a lever, in the words of little figure from Game of Thrones. Uh, it's a time where we get to adjust the course of the world or our collective past. Maybe, you know. So how do we pursue the good? What is the good? How do we pursue the truth and beauty? And we've had a few speakers already. I recall Jake Orthween screening this movie and talking about the cognitive science of psychedelics and meditation. I think that's important to like reflect on how we perceive reality in the first place. We had Austin Chen talking about starting companies and AI for epistemics and coordination. And last week we had Henry, our friend Henry Zhu, who's an open source hero and Christian. And I'm mentioning this because he suggested that one of the few things we can ground, he'd just come back from this conference on Ivan Illich, who's a Christian theologian in Italy, old Catholic dudes. And he's saying, well, Ivan Illich says, kind of friendship, one-on-one relationships are a very robust thing to ground on, and probably the best place that he has. So this is a little recap of what we've been finding over the lecture series, and now let me introduce Adam. So I think I know Adam because I saw him in the community archive Discord. I think is where I first got into you. Adam is a linguist, and Adam makes short videos about etymology and digital anthropology. I think Adam has this, very energetic style. He's very prolific, and I feel like he covers a huge swath of topics, the same kind of geek-break topics that I really love. And we kind of have this common interest of looking at the internet and extracting these trends and these movements and how, asking how ideas spread. I don't know, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, my background is in linguistics. I'm interested in exactly that, how ideas spread, what it means for ideas to spread now. You made it sound like we're moving from BC to AD, and we might as well be. So things are about to change in a big way, and the way ideas are spreading are also changing. My research was initially in how algorithms are shaping language, and now we're going to go on AI shaping language. Seems like those things are happening.
So, yeah. I was hoping to talk to you about, I feel like as a student of etymology and of digital anthropology, there's this maybe perspective in deep cultural tying of how ideas and how ideas move over long periods of time. Yeah. And I am trying to, the move from EC to AD is the object of this festival, and so that's kind of the big frame of what I'm hoping to discuss. You also mentioned being interested in what a post-slop world looks like. And I think that's a pretty good chunk to begin with. It's like, okay, we have a new species. The new species produces content in a somewhat different way than we do. I was just reading your Substack post on slop.
And I think a good place to start is maybe what is slop?
Exactly, that's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah. We're sort of in this place where everything's ambiently a psyop. Slop, I think it is important to look at the context of where the word comes from. We always understand the word better that way. Obviously, there's the sense of feeding pigs shit. The word slop comes from the Old English word for shit. Then in 2015 on the 4chan CK board, there's the term post-slop, unfortunately describing a conspiracy theory that Jews are mass feeding an unassuming audience of degraded quality food while they're into the food for themselves. And then around 2018, 2019, the slop suffix started being productively bracketed onto other things. So in the gaming community, you can have full slop, breakfast slop, red slop. And in 2020 or something, we got AI slop, which was popularized through deepfakes on Twitter. And I was quoted in the first New York Times article that talked about slop, and after that article, a bunch more articles were written. So it's like interesting how you can exist at a checkpoint of when a word starts to go more viral. But I think that original use of the word of like there is a malicious actor spreading a degraded substance to an unassuming mass audience, and then there's a knowing skeptic outside of it who's able to be aware of this system. I think that is perhaps the best way to understand slop. I mean, obviously you can point to sort of the precipitate of this ecosystem and say, oh, that AI drinking consumer video is slop. But I think that is sort of the symptom of this greater ecosystem that slop is a means of production, that there is before AI, there was also Hallmark movies and there were pulp magazines. These were like lower quality substances produced for a mass audience, and then a knowing media critic can step from the side and be aware of that. Obviously, from the food to media, there's a metaphor that is a long-standing social media feed, consuming content. So the same way we know that pigs are eating shit, we know that people are consuming slop. And so there's this sort of like, in the Sontag sense of like a camp appreciation of what it is, like seeing how something performs, that is the knowledge of slop. And now you can pretty much look at anything and call it slop. I really like this space. I could call this table sloppy because it's mass produced. I don't, but like there's an element of like how do we find joy among things that are mass produced regardless. Like I don't want to spend my time shitting at everything. I think it's a wonderful table. But also we should know what is the system that brings us to the table. Probably came in some container ship from China. I don't know, I'm just assuming, but like 90% of tables, right? Like, so, and then there's also knowing the system that brings you that, knowing who produces it, knowing who's looking at it, and among any of these points is where we can start to challenge what slop is in our own brains, in the producer's actions, and in the incentive structure that brings it. I think slop is when we surrender ourselves to the incentive structures and we simply let the metrics guide our lives.
So is when we surrender to the incentive structures, and I think that tricks guide our lives.
I think it's this sort of instrumental act of engaging with our own lives rather than deeply intentionally. I want to care about this table very deeply, and I want to care about what I'm producing very deeply. But when I do not care and I'm producing something because it makes me money, I'm making slop. And when I do not care what I'm looking at, I'm consuming slop. And so it is this instrumental mode of seeing, as opposed to a deeply intentional system where we care for what we produce and consume.
Yeah. Do you think something is slop insofar as it lacks care?
As what?
It lacks care.
As likes?
As it lacks care.
Yeah, it lacks care. I think care, it's hard to define, right? It's an arbitrary sense of meaning, right? I think that is a huge part of it. I think it is when you perceive something as being made without care, and when you do not care, I'm fine with cheating yourself. I think Love Island is slop, but I love Love Island, right? So you can choose to look at slop with care. You can also, I think it's a weird show in how they create a panopticon and like do things that are going to be good for views. So in that way, they're producing it. So I think you could produce a show that is better for society as well. But also, since it's here, maybe enjoy the slop, but also maybe we should challenge the structures that bring us slop. All of those happen.
I'm curious about where the frontier of your interrogation is. What's like you're interested in this post-slop world. You're interested in how AI changes the way ideas spread. One of the ways is that you get to produce a lot more ideas like yourself.
Yeah, right. Well, again, anything can be slop. I think. Well, I also mentioned psyops. I think slop is inadvertent psyop. A psyop is when you're intentionally manipulating people, and slop is when you're just like passively like letting people get manipulated and you are participating in that without like even a deliberate malicious intent. It's just like a banality of people kind of situation. I think if it is true, and I think it is true that everything on the internet is just dependent on what metrics are making things go viral. It just becomes a game you can play to go viral. Everything literally ends up as a side off. Like you are either trying, like anybody making a video who is trying to go viral is already inherently trying to manipulate people. So I think we should be deliberate and intentional and kind in how we side off other people.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So I'm hearing echoes of two things. One, the dark forest theory of the internet, which for those who don't know, it comes from the three-body problem where why are there no aliens? Well, because maybe the universe is really dangerous, and anyone who shows themselves, so any aliens that become visible get obliterated. And in the same way, online, you kind of get disincentivized from sharing authentic information about yourself, because anything can and will be instrumentalized against you, and anything you see in an open internet space will be optimized as psyops to benefit someone's agenda, and so people retreat to the cozy web, which is just a web of group chats. Right?
Making things public on the internet, I've had my address doxed and I've got swatting correct and stuff, and it's like a serious, like, you know.
You got swatted?
Yeah, it's threats, but they sent a pizza to my mom's house once. I think, like, my parents are aware of this and okay with the situation because hopefully the goal is still make important things on the internet and I don't want to let that stop me, but it is something that you should be aware of, that if you casually post on Instagram, somebody on 4chan could find that, turn you into an AI deepfake that's like naked or something, then people are like you can't control your own image if you post online or something. And you can go viral without your own knowledge or any of this, and then your own reality is targeted by malicious actors, or even, I think most of the time, I do not believe people are inherently bad. I think that we often fall into these like bad structures that are now guiding most behavior on the internet. Yeah, I think there is something to the dark forest theory. There is something to reshaping, if we can, and fight in ways that we can to reshape the ecology of social media right now. I think engagement optimization is like pretty bad. But also, there's a time and place for intentional, deliberate communication where you know what the risks are, where you choose to accept those risks, and you try to make the world a better place.
Yeah, exactly. And so, open internet, there's always some intention, right? Like you're always trying to sign up your friends. There's a question of what values are you trying to project, right? Because by posting online, you are paying a cost, right? Especially by posting earnestly, you're paying a cost for vulnerability, right? You're sharing real things about yourself that people can use to make inferences. So what are you running risks for, right? It's like what's worth psyoping others for also, right? Like if your input into the collective subconscious
Right.
costs you something.
Yeah. If you're not aware, you're not thinking about how you're psyoping, you're slopping.
Right.
And I think slop is bad and evil, and we should be careful about it. If we do know exactly what we're psyoping for, and only post stuff when we have like a reason for posting it, that I think helps create a better internet system where it's easier to identify also like what has like signal and what's noise.
And there's this sense of there's no neutral action, or like the neutral action is slope, and then you let others decide for you what ideas are spreading through the substrate of you. Okay, so in terms of the frontier of your interest, you were saying,
I'm really interested in how humans are adopting AI language right now. For example, like we all know about like Delve being said at higher rates now because of AI, overrepresenting the word Delve, and now that's bleeding into human speech. There were 2 studies that came out last summer that more research being done on this. That because we just use words that we ambiently hear around us, and we ambiently see the word Delve popping up more around us, we start saying the word Delve more. And even if you think you're better than that and you're not using the word Delve, You might use the word underscore surpass or one of the thousands of other words that are used at slightly higher pace until this kind of more the poster child for this. But that was sort of slopping in how we say language when we don't use a word with deliberate intention. You should know where words come from, how words got popular, and then you can choose to use a word or not use a word. But it's hard to I don't know, study everything all the time and be aware of everything. Which is why, again, offline maybe it's okay if we slightly slop with our friends. But when we're online, we gotta be really, really careful. I will only post a video I deeply script out and think about the phrasing. So we also know if you don't use AI, you're also using the word Dell at higher rates because your friend who's in love with your chatbot is using Dell at higher rates, and you don't know that they're influenced by AI. And the way ideas spread is viral. It's not a broadcast, so it's the people get infected and transmit words to other people, and the algorithm kind of has replicated this idea of a virus and made it easier than ever for an idea to rapidly spread from 0 to 100. It's crazy to me that Dubai chocolate didn't exist until 2022. The word Stradwife didn't exist until 2019. And now, I mean, you can go to any corner store and buy Dubai chocolate, and the word Stradwife is one of the most searched for words of Pornhub in 2024.
Okay, great.
Which also points to how this is affecting people's subconscious desires. It's different to look at a Google trend and one thing to look at a Pornhub trend and you see wow, actually people's intimate behaviors are still being shaped by these internet trends.
Oh, that's interesting. New terms let you more precisely express whatever subconscious.
Yeah, and in a way, perhaps labeled a latent cultural desire, but also it sort of creates desire. A word on one hand says something, on the other hand it does something.
Yeah.
There's something to people feeling like this is a thing that's happening, and it becomes a thing that's happening, and the algorithm kind of in how it presents things with the appearance of it being neutral, and it's never quite neutral, ends up shaping our realities.
Yeah, it's quite a loopy system. It's kind of like markets, but much more sensitive in the sense that whatever action you take in it shapes your experience of it.
Like I said, as a social media influencer, I see this, I do this myself, where if a word is trending, we have to capitalize on that trend to go viral. And so we feel like something is becoming more popular, we'll start saying it, and it actually becomes more popular. I saw the Pope say 6-7 last month. That happened because just a sequence of people all separately said 6-7 in an attempt to become, capitalize on a little bit of the fame of that meme and bring yourselves a little bit more views so you can become more famous. And then the joke is getting people who don't know that. But that's why I also think brain rot occurs. It's oversaturation of trending stuff to the point of nonsensicality. Even years of how much little we buy chocolate, a little bit of ontological low state. These are all kind of taking words that are individually trending in a pocket of the internet in a quarter of time and turning them onto the cells to create absurdity, which works on a sensory level rather than a semantic level.
Those words were at a sensory level.
Yeah, I think if I look at Charlie Kirk's face, I feel like I used to because of the fact that when you say a word too many times, you undergo semantic satiation, where you start attending to the form of the word over the content. Table. It stops being a table. It starts being something ridiculous. And I start feeling the table more than I think about what the word table means. And I think that's what brain rot does. It takes things out of the world of definitions that can be categorized and turns it into a world of definitions that are felt. And feelings are really how we structure a worldview, and it's not the other way around. Once you change someone's sensory kind of feeling about Charlie Kirk, or I think the Israeli flag is brain rot online, these things have changed people's actual ideologies because of the way that they appreciate affect and that we build a worldview around that.
Wow. Wait, so you're saying one way to shape the map or the cultural territory.
Yeah.
Is to go straight for the valence of a word. And
I mean, there's a long history of psyops being subliminal, right? I mean, it's crazy to me that as a society we were ever okay with product placement in like movies. That there's just like they're literally trying to subliminally influence us.
Yeah.
And now we're mad about undisclosed ads on social media. This was already a thing. It's just like who has the power of who can do the undisclosed ads different now. But that was a psyop. I mean, we know since like MK Ultra and stuff that there's like literally been government exploration and subliminal messaging, and it's just like now more normalized. This the word psyop has increased in usage like tenfold over the past 4 years, and other words like false flag are becoming way more normal because there's a general awareness of this instability of how ideas spread and the malleability of our own minds, and also separate of whether AI is conscious or not, and whether these machines or whatever, like they are sort of functioning like social actors in our ecosystem, where it is indistinguishable online whether you're talking to a bot or a human, and will only increasingly continue to be so. These bots also have their own representations of language and are pushing that out. So you can't really trust anything, and there's a greater than ever ability to I don't know, there's sort of an imbalance in how things can spread.
There's an imbalance in how things can spread. Yeah, it feels so loopy and out of control that by getting on a small trend, you can get a small amount of power, and you empower to the trend, and then someone can get on that trend and get a medium amount of power and empower to that trend. And so it feels like there are these like rockets of arbitrary trends that constantly.
Well, to be fair, again, this has existed before, and the whole slop has existed before. I think people should read The Image by Daniel Worsman. It's such a good book. He describes like pseudo events, which are events that didn't really happen but are manufactured for media. So the press conference is a classic pseudo event where the news needs to bring more news, and the politician wants to appear. Then usually they like come together and they make news happen, and there were no cameras there, there's nothing to report on. So it's a pseudo event. It is an event that only exists for the sake of the news. Now every single video posted on social media is a pseudo event. Like there's no, there used to be a concerted effort between the distributor and the person inside the information, and now the distributor is the algorithm. So all I have to do is come up with an idea of like, oh, I want to go viral, and I post a video actually creating a pseudo event that would otherwise not exist. So this is not like a neutral depiction of reality. This is usually something that people are harnessing in an attempt to become more famous. Worsman defines a celebrity as like a human pseudo event. It's someone that is famous for being famous. He kind of popularized that definition. And now influencers, like you can sort of hyperstition yourself into more popularity by posting more collabing. If I do a collaboration with another social media influencer, we're actually capitalizing on each other's like popularity to become more viral. If I talk about the etymology of the word 6'7", I'm capitalizing on the human phenomenon of 6'7" to go more viral. And so, like pretty much every attempt to go viral is itself a pseudo event, unless you're trying to go viral as a means for some idea rather than for its own end. Yeah.
Unless you're trying to go viral instrumentally for a purpose.
Which is what the slop is, but also psyop, but also it's if you're not aware of what you're harnessing, what an instrument is. That you are being used.
Oh, okay. So by being a celebrity, by being a human pseudo event,
they're being like a classic human pseudo event.
You're producing slope. Like
yeah.
Aiming to be a celebrity is like making your career slope.
Yeah. You're showing people things that wouldn't be real otherwise,
right.
Which is fucking with their minds.
And without an agenda, right? Like besides you yourself becoming good.
And what does it matter if you're famous if you didn't change anything? You didn't
right,
do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're neutral, and so.
So you're soft.
So you're soft.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I want to try summing this up and also opening up for questions. I think there's this. I know this theme of care and the responsibility for care, because we exist in a system where the fact of whether we pay attention or don't, or whether we care or don't, at lots of different levels, has massive repercussions, right? Because like, if me saying 6'7" can determine whether the 6'7" goes then that's like a hinge point, right? And insofar as I'm not being attentive, I'm letting myself be the substrate of something else that has an intention.
And while 6-7, I guess, is a relatively harmless example, there are definitely harmful ideas that people are spreading. I think clavicular was a good example that Aleksic kind of genre has gone crazy. When the New York Times writes an article about clavicular, they're also platforming. It's also not neutral. They're also doing like a pseudo event because they want to create relevance to the newspaper. And clavicular wants to be more popular. And social media influencers are talking about this. We all kind of bring a concept into existence. There's sort of like a Lovecraftian pull of Cthulhu out of the void. And that's definitely something to be aware of that we are doing.
That reminds me of my favorite video of yours, and I do want to touch on it for like a couple minutes. So we've been talking about this kind of psyop narrative warfare style thing that's happening all around. We've been talking about slop, which is kind of passively surrendering to other actors who are playing this game, as opposed to your responsibility to take care and to maybe psyop with good values or whatever values you consider worthwhile. And you just noted kind of the Lovecraftian like notion of summoning. And there's really great video of yours that I wanted to screen, but we ended up not doing. That if I can summarize, it's called digital occultism, and it's about how only some celebrities or memes or big ideas are popular and culturally relevant at any given
There's like
time.
a whole window, the Overton window, the laborers law. There's like always a range of acceptable discourse that's happening with our language, with our fashion, with our aesthetics, with what celebrities are popular. There's like 5 celebrities that can be hold in their head at any given point. They're actually like the current popular ones.
Yeah. So then there, you can notice a game that exists or that's implicit, but it exists, which is okay. Can we get our celebrity? Can we get our idea? Can we get our character or meme into that spot, into that private real estate?
So like Stan Twitter is trying to summon their celebrity out of Key Asylum and turn that into like a more mainstream celebrity. In internet meme communities, I see like there are people who have this sort of occult-like reverence for a niche meme and trying to make it more popular by like posting about it. And I think perhaps the best framework to understand the uncertain reality that we're in, which can be reshaped by perception and sensory affect itself, like is magical realism. That magic, which is something that fucks with your sense of reality, that summons something from nowhere, can reshape everything. And so if you can get a magician, an occultist, is somebody who is summoning something into everybody else's world. The celebrity you like, the word you want to use, you can sort of squat in semantic space. That's sort of, if it's done intentionally, I mean, that's the good side off, but it can also become with balance.
Exactly, and the fact that this is a thing that people do, there is a discipline, there's a set of skills, and one, I think a very important question, and one we're trying to answer with the last summer, and the first summer, is insofar as there is a god or a thing worth summoning, what is it? And can we agree on at least some of its properties? And how do we become good and effective at summoning that? You might call it God, or a life force principle, something generative and pro-social and beautiful, and truth-seeking. Anyway, I think we got exactly where I wanted to get. Unless you have like any final comments on what like worthwhile gods to summon are.
The gods I'm trying to summon are the ones where we're aware of the gods we're trying to summon. And so hopefully that leads us into summoning the better gods instead of the worse gods. But yeah, we are in this sort of world where you need a Gnostic or esoteric approach where you focus on some niche knowledge and try to pull your niche knowledge into the mainstream, and hopefully do it in a way that positively impacts other people rather than negatively. And my niche knowledge is about how people summon niche knowledge.
I feel like I love how most of my friends go maximally meta.
I'm a meta accelerationist.
All right, this was so great. This was so great. Thanks for answering my questions. I want to give everyone else a chance to ask questions.
Okay. Okay. So I'm a high school teacher, so the brain rot and like the kind of apathy I think is like front lines for me, and I'm really experiencing this really devastating, just like, you know, ChatGPT essays and like this kind of just refusal to interact with knowledge and information in a critical way. And I think part of that is because we've become desensitized to like our loss of autonomy and like in this like, you know, surveillance world, and also like these deep fakes, like I do have this sense of nihilism of like, if a deep fake is created of me naked, like whatever, I guess, you know, I can't really control that. And so like as a researcher, what questions are you like posing to yourself to intervene with that kind of apathy? Like what can I teach my kids when they're being exposed to information that might be slop for them to like go through steps to check it? Because like I feel like it's just a practice, right?
Yeah. I think that's so. One, I think the biggest split in the post-slop world is whether to treat things with nihilism or existentialism. And if you treat with nihilism, you remove yourself from the equation. You end up just consuming or producing slop, and you're not actually a part of the world that is shifting the window of what we're talking about or trying to take anything. Within the world of the existentialists, you can go in two directions. You can be like, only my worldview matters, or I'm going to pretend that other people's worldviews also matter. I think this is like traditionally been sort of how the left and right splits in politics, but you have sort of right now like these people who are like they know about this stuff or are ambiently aware about this stuff and are just using it to make themselves more famous or something. And then there's the good branch of existentialists who want to positively change the world for everybody. I think the way I have approached this, and there's not one neat answer, is to make people interested and excited and feel feelings of awe and magic and whimsy and wonder and these things. And the way I try to do this is by piquing people's interest in the words we're using and the memes we're talking about. I don't think brain rot is necessarily interchangeable with nihilism. It definitely lends itself to it, but you can use brain rot sort of to also shift the window of what we're talking about. In like schizoposting in a Bluesian sense is creating like a different version of reality for people. And brain rot itself, in the way I mentioned about the Charlie First Face, or these can change people's political realities. So if you're at least doing it with an awareness of what brain rot is, and that's kind of what I like to talk to people about. And I don't know, the way to change those high schoolers' minds is to make them excited and interested in things. I don't know, there's really no other. It starts on an individual level. Good luck.
To talk about, I noticed you used the word slop and psyop. It's interesting, you know, you have qualifiers, so that you guys psyop, good slop, great. But inherently, when people hear those words, they think it's negative, and for that reason, I think it's harder for people to conceptualize that you can use these tools for good. So I feel like when I'm wishing for a one word that means like good slop, good psyop, if you have thoughts on what that is.
I do not think good slop exists. I think you can look at slop and be happy about it. And that's something I work on an individual level. But I'm also aware that this is a general negative externality that everybody is kind of experiencing that is coming from a mode of production that is misaligned with what humans actually value and create meaning out of. And it comes out of that nihilistic mode of thinking and seeing about the internet. So I think all slop is kind of bad, and I think perhaps we can have a word for good psyop and bad psyop. But I think if you're not acknowledging that everything changes your reality, then you're slopping. And if you are acknowledging that everything's changing reality, then you're psyoping. I'm in favor of a word that we can swag and semantic space it out, where we agree on a good versus a psyop and how this discussion is.
I would like to bless you all with the info blessing of info blessing.
Info blessing. I'm gonna start
curious of the trends you're discussing and really just the work in general. How much of it is unique to like the English speaking internet? I imagine it's the largest segment, but surely something's happening. I guess Spanish, Twitter, Chinese, whatever they use, something like. Are these trends the same, or are they better, or they worse?
If anything, they're worse. Indonesia since like 2021 has had the concept of a buzzer, and like people on it's like a buzzer somebody like hired by politicians to do like undisclosed ads for politicians, and this has been happening way before we even started talking about undisclosed UGC ads in like the English speaking internet. And there are places with stronger cultural institutions and weaker cultural institutions, and America. I'm glad that we have strong cultural institutions, I think, because they help create sort of that attitude of media discernment that, and also infrastructure for democratic messaging online. And yeah, I think the problem is worse in some places. And there's also, even with like the AI, for example, there's like higher resource and lower resource languages, which then affect like how misaligned models are with language. And so like the lower resource languages, the internet is even more malleable, I suppose, with both on social media and through AI. It like a language like Slovenian is one where it's easier for you to hyperstition your Cthulhu monster into existence because there's a smaller space that the ideas exist in.
There are fewer humans speaking there's less human content, so AI content has more relative power.
Yeah, I think so. So I think we are almost safer ones.
What future technologies are you genuinely excited about? That's from the perspective of like the TV scale, be good.
I'm an avid member of the New York City Neolife movement. I think the problem is like a lot of technology makes it more like because when we offload and we're swamping and things that make it easier for us to offload ourselves to others and their ideas and their materials, all of that sort of increases slop in our lives. I suppose I know I'm in a room with people who are building things, and I'm excited for you guys, and I hope you build good things. I think I'm really worried about platform affordances and how you can kind of shape the user through the design packs you create. So I think there's opportunities for much better websites than the ones that exist right now, and I urge you to think about your affordances and where they send the user, and hopefully send them down better paths than the ones we're setting them down now. I don't think any tool will ever be, perfect, but the ones we have are very, very imperfect right now.
So we build a slightly better version of something, and also recognize that it's imperfect, have a ability, then I think that is a light mode of thinking where you can still build technology, but be skeptical of the technology you're building and do not promise it as a salvation that will cure everything, because it will not. Looking back. Sorry, because that's an easy answer. I would love to hear you. You said.
Hi, great talks so far. I just had a question about, slot definitionally. I know it sounds like we're talking about non-fictional creation productions that are transferring truth to the world. If you think about it as not in slot, as we get Love Island, Hallmark movies as more slot. But what fictional cultural products would not be considered slot? And is that through intentionality of the author? Is that through any critic and this degree that slop was just going to have to be an idea outside people there, or is there a way you can create those kind of products with some form of non-slop?
Yeah, our slop distinction is always denied to the holder. 1 minute slop is really great art. But I think there is stuff we tend to agree is more art-like. A great example of slop in the art world is the paintings they put up in hotel rooms. Those are meant to fill out space, right? They're not meant to be good paintings. They're meant to, it's like somebody's like, well, I guess we need a painting in a hotel room. And so you fill it up, go to the master.
we agree that the Mona Lisa is not Vedic slop, right? But there could be some art critic who really knows so much, like, yeah, my niece Da Vinci, painting is way better than this. Actually, everybody's consuming Da Vinci slop. Which is like, you have that right to say that because you have more esoteric knowledge or whatever. But also, I feel like the Mona Lisa brings more people a sense of awe and excitement and interest, and there's the intrigue of the history of it all. Maybe there's some tie there to the concept of aura from Walter Benjamin originally, now appropriate by Jean. The idea of like holding something in a unique moment in time and space. If something is a one of one, then it becomes less slot. And I think the mass-produced mindset and kind of mode of production helps create slop. Like things are copies that are scaled up. Then it is hard to behold something. Every hotel room painting looks exactly the same. And I suppose now there's copies of the Mona Lisa, but the copy feels like slop, and you reach what this name.
I'm sorry, I can't remember who had hands up first.
I have other ship we could to kind of accelerate for like a couple months, but one reason that as so many people like different they can seem like you guys sort of merged really early on like the slot style of access if everything to either slot or Zion.
You're welcome to your question.
I don't know what the missing category is, but I feel like surely there must be at least a third. And I think that idea of maybe like maximizing subjectivity and stuff might be sort of, I don't know how helpful it is. Like it makes sense that she's some politics, that she's faster to me than cloud or whatever, but it feels like the word like too many times to me is rate limits. Like there should be more weight in that's about and like acknowledging the rate limits being used and now that's not. So there seems like it feels like it's meaningfully different about like pre-gen one and then post-gen. And I saw because like there's no more weight limit on how much work or art like art in or that's like pre-gen or
The cost of produces slop is right now.
Exactly. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts on like bottlenecks and like rate limits and like maybe like what distinguishes like just one-to-one slot, you know what I mean? What like you would get if like your friend puts or whatever, like there's a sort of assumption of some amount of intent in there, but now when you can scale what you produce.
Yep.
That goes.
If I suppose if I were to introduce like added dimensions to the framework, give all frames reductive, this is a way of thinking about things. I mentioned that slop and psyops require a knowing observer from the outside to be aware of the system. So in that sense, there's no awareness of artifice. I mentioned that you can also be unaware of things and be blissfully ignorant. And then there are no slops in the psyop. There's simply things to hold around you. Unfortunately, we have the three of knowledge and Bill about all this stuff that you within hazard. But there can be the post-ironic appreciation of something. Which I suppose is how I live in Love Island, that I think is slop. I choose to enjoy it nonetheless. And so that is a non-slop, non-psyop way of looking at it, but it is important to remember that the mode of production is still slop-like. And I think the only difference with the rate limits is the mode of production. The scales faster, and it's hard to make like a your master of this sort of way is more or less slop-like. I suppose it's just, I don't want to say it's just like how many copies there are that we up to. So it's the callousness with which we approach something, and intentionality and B is not something you can really measure, I believe. And it's something that will always progress on a subjective level. It's you get a bit.
So I guess the question is more like, with our increased awareness of psyops, with all this is more essentialism, more nihilism, more degradation of our trust institutions, and I think you kind of touched on some of the things that we can generally do to reinstill some level of trust, like have more critical thinking, have more awareness, maybe good psyops, but generally, what do you think are some of the more high impact ways that we can kind of dig ourselves out of this dish that we have?
Yeah, you said the word trust twice. I think that is kind of the key to the whole thing, that we need to trust each other. And watch this right now. How do we trust each other? One is that our forest, basically that you can engage in more trustworthy communities that entirely have large. Another is, in-person communities with this thing. Offline infrastructure is very important. They need to simultaneously build a rich offline world and a rich online world. And the most effervescent way we always experience socialization is in person with other people, where we hold in this sense of aura that you are right there in front of me. I don't know, I like looking at the building blocks of what religions are and building them again in a good way. Like the ritual is a bounded period of time and space in which we feel better. And sacred symbols are just like images and icons that make us feel better about those things. And in that Alan Gifford poem Howl, he describes Moloch, and people may have read, Scott Alexander's Penetrations on Moloch, inspired by that. Moloch is this idea of like a terrible system that we all kind of contribute to that makes things worse, but we all kind of have to contribute to it. Capitalism is Moloch, and the area is now Moloch. And there's no clear answer, but in the footnotes to his poem, he talks about making everything holy. And I'm not an adherent to a religion, but I believe in ascribing a sacredness to everything around us. That if you treat everything as holy, that is the best possible way to fight on. And so to build trust, I think we need to build a feeling that things are special to us, to people around us, treat things like they're special, and not have that ethos of this mentality, which sort of requires the production of slop.
So can I say it's fair to distill Wingson into saying, like, we need to rebuild religion in some way in a more trustworthy, effective way?
I'm skeptical of all religions as well. I think they sort of, people are welcome, to do what they will. I think it is also sort of kind of like platform that there are like affordances that lead you down. It's a sort of offloaded neuro-spiritual quest. So my personal belief is I'm really about my own religion. No one else is invited. But that's just a whole separate. But yeah, treat everything like it's important, sacred. Yeah.
Oh yes, please. Before I ask my question, I just want to thank my friend Matt for his invite to this event. This is very stimulating for sure. Like the question is such focused on already share. But yeah, I guess I have kind of a two-part question. So in relation to everything that was kind of stated here, and I think the discussion, but also between you two, but also with the audience. I guess the first my two-part question would be: do you think that there's any? Do you think this the idea of slop and like the issues that pertain to it can't be considered part of a larger kind of civilizational atrophy? And when I say that, I don't just mean like in terms of technology, but like also socially, spiritually, and other regards. And if so, what could be a roadmap, in your humble opinion, to kind of fight that atrophy, especially in terms of like the larger part of the time, like think of things like evolution and ecology. Again, not just technologically or scientifically, but overall, what defines us as essentially a country beings.
Sure, I guess I'm worried about any ever doing civilizational atrophy, and simply we are where we are right now, and we should try to build the best possible civilization. So building forward to a good civilization. In his Phaedrus, Plato has a dialogue between Socrates and Phaedrus, where Socrates is freaked out about the written word. He's saying that it's slop, and he's saying that it is no more than it should be no more than a reminder to those who already know, because it is a false representation of knowledge. It does not actually contain meaning. You can't interrogate the written word, and I think we've forgotten about that entirely, and we should also think that this slop stuff has existence in writing, that people can just parrot back phrases that get read without deeply grappling with them or understanding them themselves. And we slop in our words, and I tried to emphasize earlier, we have been doing this forever. I think, we have developed more and more ways of slopping since then, and if that could be a narrative decline, perhaps it is. I think the optimistic existential way out is to build towards something good, and whatever that means to you, because this is at the end of the day subjective.
I just wanna check. It's 12:30. I know you have so.
I just have a 2 p.m. thing at Manhattan.
Okay, cool.
So happy
You
to
can
go.
take one. Couple more questions. Two.
Yeah. Slots.
Earlier you talked about endorse the superior war hypothesis based idea that like the words that we're speaking are kind of, they're deeply affecting the way we think. In one of my favorite videos of yours, you talked about how insert communities are often the progenitors, creators of the internet speak, of the words that are kind of defining now we're in a defining internet era, and specifically those of like far right, and specifically you mentioned far right spaces as well as marginalized spaces as being the other one, like African American, Korean was the other place where these terms are coming from. How do you think these two kind of, these kind of insert spaces kind of accidentally cause bringing their words to the larger web is affecting our larger discourse?
Yeah, that's an important point. Wait, hold on. First, the superior word thing is like a little like loaded in linguistics. I think it's silly to say that words really determine our reality alone, but they're part of the overall thing. So I guess that's the relativistic angle to that. There's a piece of the puzzle going on with how words are shaping things and memes in general. I think, but I'm looking at both words and memes here. We do see about like 8% of like Gen Z now listening coming from either African American English or incel communities online. And I think it is because of, so there's a few things going on here. One, words that spread, whether funny or cool. Like you want to use a word that makes you sound funny or cool. And a lot of incel language just sounds really funny. And a lot of African American English sounds really cool. And some of it is also parodied, so it also sounds funny. And so that's kind of the mechanism by which there's a social contagion. But also, certain communities are more productive with coming up with new language. Marginalized communities come up with more language because there's a need to differentiate themselves from sort of the cultural status quo, from the sort of the straight white norm of the English language. So you have a lot of like gay black people coming with language. But also, the incel community, in their own way, experiences a form of marginalization that they have produced into language. There's a cult-like kind of hierarchy that they've created where knowing more words is a good thing, and it separates them from like the outsiders. So there's like I guess both create that sort of distinction from the mainstream for their own different motivations. And that creates more language. And also, people in 4chan have been the most aware of PsyOps, and there's some inadvertent leakage, but some deliberate, like, trying to mainstream ideas, strategic mainstreaming. Yeah, I think that's kind of the dynamic that differentiates the two, that a lot of African American English is inadvertently taken by other people, and a lot of incels have deliberately pushed, although it is still appropriated, I suppose, in other circumstances. Then you'll have words coming from like fandom communities and stuff. It's usually, just like people with shared interests, with shared need to create new words end up doing that. And then if it's applicable to the mainstream, you can summon Cthulhu.
Yeah, last question. Right there.
Hi, so a lot of good, interesting thoughts on the means of production of slop. I think throughout, it seemed to me like the means of consumption of slop were kind of the independent variable in the discussion. Like it was assumed that, yeah, we all obviously consume algorithmic feeds of whatever the algorithm serves to us on whichever platforms we are all on. If that wasn't the independent variable, if that could be changed, I guess what would be your prescription on an individual level, and you mentioned a lot of items, you mentioned cozy web, but also on a kind of platform ecology and design level?
Yeah, of course, in the broader discussion, I think the actors creating it and the structures bringing slop are more to blame, but we are part of this piece. And the way I personally combated slop is by taking philosophies of walking and applying them to looking at social media. So like there's the idea of that you can like walk kind of ambiently in your surroundings without thinking much until you encounter a point of psychogeographic tension. And there you can pull out the situation and examine what was going on, and you can go, why does that alleyway make me feel weird? And in the same way, when I scroll on social media, like you can't be out of the medium at all times, otherwise it doesn't work. That equivalent would be the philosophy of play, just like an attached mode of walking where you coolly like inspect your surroundings. But the Derived attitude, like that, it lets you immerse in the medium and pull out of the medium, immerse in the medium and pull out of the medium. And I would love to see platforms with more affordances for pausing, and that also creates the ritualistic feeling of bounded space-time, where you experience things as discrete units rather than continuous liminal flow of constant media. So I don't know what that would look like in terms of algorithm, like the algorithmic feed that exists right now, which is the most addictive, right? But like a feeling of posts or like a website you go to, or like that feeling of places, that's good. I think the argument is that there will be a demand in the future for more place-like media, that things feel like there's a point where you can look at something and you can stop and you can think about it, and you can think about whether you want to share it. But where something like that, there's maybe even the button design is like, I always also think like a like button, for example, is not a measure of how much you like a video, but how much you're willing to click a button. And I think we should be careful of metrics and targets in general, and create affordances that align users with what they would like from a top-down kind of way of thinking rather than a bottom-up way of thinking, which is how the platforms are currently structured. But allow moments for that top-down thinking to come through, perhaps.
Yeah.
You guys, can we have a round of applause for Alex?
I just think
Yeah, you're welcome to all of you. You included, welcome to please stick around. Like there's brunch still, there's food, eat, have chat, eatery.
Thank you guys for the delightful questions and good conversation.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank you.